Welcome to Education Forum. I'm Herman Badillo, Chairman of the Board of Trustees of the City University. The improvement of education affects all New Yorkers. This program will focus on the key educational issues and challenges before us all. My guest today is Dr. Francis Degan Horowitz, who is the president of the Graduate Center of the City University. Dr. Horowitz is a native New Yorker from the South Bronx, in fact, who graduated and got the bachelor's degree from Antioch College and the master's degree and the doctorate from the University of Iowa, and had a very distinguished career, including an elementary school teacher. And before coming here, she was for 13 years the vice chancellor for the Graduate Center at the University of Kansas. She came to New York in 1991 and has been the president of the Graduate Center of the University of the City of New York since that time. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Tell us about the Graduate Center.
Well, the Graduate Center is a really unique institution in the United States. You know, when the City University was formed in the early 1960s, the question became as to how the university was going to provide doctoral level education.
Before that, it was the Board of Higher Education, right?
Before that, the Board of, but before that, no college in the university offered anything higher than a master's degree. And with the formation of a city university, and a university provides doctoral level education, the question became, how was City University going to do this? Long story, but the result of it was the decision to establish the Graduate Center and to focus doctoral education at the Graduate Center using a consortial model with the campuses so that each doctoral program can draw upon the very best faculty across the City University of New York.
So now, if I want to have a doctorate, I would come to the Graduate Center, or I would go to the individual campus, like City College or Hunter or Baruch?
Well, it depends on the program you're in. If you're in the humanities or most of the social and behavioral sciences, let's say you want to earn a doctoral degree in English, you apply to the Graduate Center, all the students apply to the Graduate Center, and if you have the qualifications, you're accepted. You are based here at the Graduate Center, and you begin to take your courses from faculty, some of whom are here. A very small number of faculty in English are here full-time, but the rest of the faculty are from the campuses. And so if we want to offer a course, let's say in Milton, we look around the City University and we say, who are the Milton scholars at City College, at Brooklyn College, at Queens, at Hunter, at Baruch, and we invite a Milton scholar onto the doctoral faculty who will teach the course on Milton. And what this allows CUNY to do and the Graduate Center to do is use its resources in the most cost-effective way to get the highest quality. Now, in the sciences, the decision was made that there are no wet labs at the Graduate Center. So a student in biology is accepted by the Graduate Center into the biology doctoral program, and then based on one of the campuses in one of the laboratories working with a professor. But all the non-lab courses in biology are taught here at the Graduate Center.
And when you say here is now a very splendid building.
Yes.
Because the Graduate Center just moved to the old B. Altman building, right?
Right.
At 34th Street and 5th Avenue.
Yes.
And I can't think of a more elegant address to have than this one.
Well, in fact, we're catty corner from the Empire State Building. And we sit in this beautiful old landmark building that fronts on Fifth Avenue, and we share the building with the New York Public Library Science, Business and Industry Library that fronts on Madison, and the world headquarters of Oxford University Press. So this is kind of an advanced super learning block in Midtown Manhattan. And the architects for renovating the building were Gwathmey Siegel, and they did some very interesting things. Of course, the outside is landmarked, and so you don't touch that. But they tried to keep some of the old characteristics. The lobby, for example, has the original wood, the original chandeliers.
That's why I said it's a very elegant building. I don't know of any part of the university that is as magnificent. After all, I graduated from City College from 23rd Street
Right.
and Lexington Avenue. We not only had no campus, but a very old building, so nothing like this. And by the way, the television studio that we're in is in the
Yes.
Graduate Center.
Yes.
Now, tell me how many different degrees are offered and about how many students do you have?
We have 31 doctoral programs from A to T, art history to theater and everything in between. And in those 31 doctoral programs, there are approximately 4,000 doctoral students. Some programs, of course, are much larger than others, but the total is about 4,000 doctoral students.
What's the largest program?
The largest program is psychology. It has 10 sub-programs, and psychology, you know, is a very disparate field. But the other large programs include art history, English, history, and a number of other programs.
And in order to be a student at the Graduate Center, do you have to be a graduate of one of the colleges of the City University?
No, you have to have a bachelor's degree or a master's. Many of our students enter already with master's degrees. And about 1/3 of the doctoral students at the Graduate Center in our 31 doctoral programs come from the CUNY campuses. But the other 2/3 come from all over the country and all over the world.
How does the Graduate Center at CUNY compare with the Graduate Center at NYU or some of the other universities like Fordham?
Well, we're very proud. You know, every 10 years or so, there is the National Research Council does a ranking of, reputational ranking of doctoral programs. In the last National Research Council survey, over 1/3 of CUNY's doctoral programs from the Graduate Center ended up in the top 20 in the United States. So this is a really marvelous record of really top doctoral programs. And we tended to do better than our counterparts in SUNY. We're neck and neck in some areas with Columbia and NYU, and in some areas we're considerably ahead of them.
Well, I know that's true because my son, David Badillo, who's now an assistant professor at the University of Illinois, is a graduate of the Graduate Center.
Right.
He studied history. He got a PhD in history, and he chose CUNY. It wasn't my idea. He had gone to Berkeley in California, and then he wanted to teach history, which I'm happy for because it's much better to be a professor than a politician. For all the problems of academia, it is far easier to be in academia than in politics. So he looked around all over the country, and he came to me and he said, the best school in history is the City University. So I was very happy that he chose it, and he enjoyed it very much.
Our history doctoral program is one of those in the top 20 in the United States.
Now tell me, one of the problems that we have at the bachelor's degree and the community colleges at CUNY is that it takes our students a very long time to graduate, and then many of them drop out. What is the experience at the PhD level?
Well, you know, it's interesting that you asked that question because we are putting together a lot of data right now for our Middle States accreditation, which is coming up in the spring. And while we have always thought that our students take much longer than the national average, in fact, it turns out our students are relatively close to the national average. And the national averages are different by disciplines. In the sciences, where students tend to be supported because they work in laboratories and on grants, the average is about 6 to 7 years. In the social and behavioral sciences, it's about 7 years, and in the humanities, it's closer to 8 years. And we are pretty close to that national average. A lot of it depends upon how much financial aid is available to doctoral students and how much teaching they have to do. Now, our students have a really quite special opportunity because when they do teaching, they teach on the CUNY campuses, and they get a lot of very good experience teaching on the CUNY campuses. And we do training of our doctoral students so that when they go out into the classroom on the campuses, they have some background, they have some training, and then they work with the professors on the campuses.
Now, another of the differences between the City University and the other universities in the metropolitan area is that a huge percentage of our students are older and they work or they may be married. What is the relationship in the graduate segment?
It's somewhat the same. Our student population has an average age that is somewhat older than the average age in most graduate schools. But I'll tell you an interesting story. We had an external review, as we do of all of our programs, of our English doctoral program. And one of the people on the English review team came from an Ivy League school, I won't mention the name, and he was the chairman of that department. And after he had reviewed the program, and he came to my office for kind of an exit interview, and I was talking with him, and he said, you know, your students are so marvelous here. They tend to be older, they tend to be mature, they bring life experience into the classroom. He said, now at the university where I am, we have the brightest 22 and 23-year-old students in the country because it was a very prestigious university. He said the problem is they're 22 and 23 years old, that they don't bring the kind of life experience into the classroom that really enriches the kinds of considerations of literature, of history, of political science that goes on here. And this has been, it's interesting because almost every set of external reviewers who have come to look at our programs at the end, after they've interacted with our students, make a special point to talk about how wonderful our students are.
And what about the background of the students? As you know, at the City University, in the community colleges and senior colleges, we have a huge percentage of immigrants from all over the world, probably more so than any other university in the country. How is the Graduate Center in that?
We have also, it mirrors that in, well, first of all, we have about 25% of our students are international students, and so they really broaden the student background. And then domestically, about 23% of our doctoral students, almost 24%, are from minority groups, are from African American, Hispanic, Asian American, and then the rest are from New York and from around the country. So there's really, if you go up in our, what we call our dining commons, it's United Nations up there.
And what about the ratio of men and women?
We have slightly more women than we have men.
Well, that's the same experience
Right,
that we
right.
have at the community colleges and the senior colleges.
Yeah.
We'll be back after these announcements.
When you're small, the world can seem pretty big. But these kids are learning more about it every day. Because in his spare time, Harry Cooper teaches the children in his neighborhood how to use a computer. And every time he does, he puts the whole world in their hands. Couldn't you do something? No, it's not your money. It's you we want. Come on, pick up that phone.
A kid ahead.
We're back today with Dr. Francis Horowitz, who is the president of the Graduate Center of the City University of New York. Tell me something about the special programs that you have. For example, there's something called the Film Certificate. What is that about?
Well, in addition to the doctoral programs, we have a set of certificate programs. These are, it's kind of like a minor in other universities, but it gives the student a credential, and we have one in Renaissance studies, medieval studies, film studies, American studies, and women's studies, and it allows a student, while they're taking the doctoral program, to get a kind of interdisciplinary specialization in another area. And it has turned out that this is a very useful approach to helping our students be quite competitive on the job market. For example, several years ago, what people considered was the top job in the country in English at the University of Chicago, one of our students got the job in part because she did a certificate program in women's studies. For 2 years in a row, our graduates got tenure-track jobs in French at the University of Michigan. And when I asked one of the students, you know, why do you think you got that job? She said, because I did the certificate program in film studies, because increasingly universities are looking for faculty who are broadly trained and who have good interdisciplinary backgrounds. And one of the characteristics of the Graduate Center is that we long ago committed ourselves to giving good interdisciplinary training to our students, so they don't come out as narrow specialists, you know, studying something on the head of a pin. They have a broad background, and they can often teach in diverse areas.
Well, do the students who graduate, do they become primarily or almost exclusively professors? Is that the goal?
No. The Graduate Center has had a good culture in that the faculty are not just interested in cloning themselves. While upwards of 40% to 50%, depending on the program, will go into the academy and take jobs in universities, others of our students take jobs in the private sector, in government, in not-for-profit agencies. For instance, a number of our physics doctoral students are picked up by the financial district because they have this enormous capability to do modeling and computational analysis, and that's very important in the financial markets.
Well, you know, one of the things that I'm doing together with Chancellor Goldstein is I've set up a business leadership council made up of the top business people in New York City, and one of the things that they're doing is telling us what jobs are available now and what jobs will become available in the next 10 or 15 years. And undoubtedly, there could be some of your graduate students who should be trained for those jobs. Have you ever set up any evaluation of where the students that graduate go to?
Yes, we have a tracking system in terms of collecting data, at least on the first job that our students take, and now we're trying to get to the second and third job. So we have a pretty good database, and we also have a very good record of placement of our doctoral students. For several years in a row now, upwards of 95 to 96% of our June graduates are in jobs the next fall. And
primarily teaching?
No, teaching and in other kinds of, in government jobs, as I said, in the private sector. And now, I think that the goal, the strategy that you and Chancellor Goldstein have put out in terms of tying the city university more closely to economic development in this city is very, very important for the future. And as you know, we just established, CUNY just established the consortium for software design and development to work very closely with the software design and development commercial community, because we have some really fine computer scientists and others throughout City University who are working on projects that have potential commercial possibilities. And so by linking this institute on software design and development with new media, which is, as you know, one of the major areas of development in New York City, I think we can find ways to make CUNY's relationship to economic development very profitable.
Well, that's what we have to do, because I want to be sure, first of all, that our students are able to get jobs. And as far as I know, the best jobs are here in Manhattan. And it would be a shame not to be able to have those jobs filled by our students. In the past, as you know, we've had graduates of the city colleges become some of the top CEOs in New York City, higher than Harvard, Columbia, or NYU, or anyone else. So I want to continue that progress as we move along. But I know that you also are working to some extent with the public schools, and that concerns me, because you also know that I've complained for a long time that our public schools don't have standards, and that we need to bring those standards up to a higher level. Tell us about some of those programs.
Well, at the Graduate Center, we have the Center for the Advanced Study of Education, which is CASE. And CASE works very closely with faculty members in educational psychology and a number of other disciplines. And they do research. They carry out research projects on programs, intervention programs, teacher training, the kinds of things, the questions that we have about how to make our schools better. And as you know, we are trying to build upon this by developing a PhD program in education so that we can focus the research energies of the education faculty at the City University of New York on the questions that will improve educational practice in the city schools.
Well, you've been a teacher and your field is developmental psychology, so can you give us an insight about Why do we have such problems in getting inner city children to achieve in the school system, particularly Hispanics and blacks?
Well, Herman, if I had the answer to that.
but you know a great deal about it. So.
I do know something about it. One of the things that, and my area was early childhood development and infant behavior and development, is that a great deal has to do with the readiness of children to learn when they come to school. Whether they've had the kinds of background and experiences for the kind of learning that has to go on in the classroom. And increasingly we know that good preschool education does increase readiness for school. And then it comes down to the skills of the teacher and the resources that the teacher has in the classroom.
So it becomes even more important to train the teachers for the early grades, huh?
Very important. If a child, and I know that the vice chair of the board says this all the time, Benno Schmidt, if a child is not reading at grade level by third or fourth grade, then the prognosis for that child through the educational system gets increasingly poor. We know enough to teach almost all normal children how to read. So if we can concentrate our efforts, particularly in teaching children to read, so that by the third grade they're reading on or near the third grade level, from then on it's much easier for the child.
Okay, so if you were designing the school system, how would you emphasize the performance of the teachers in the first kindergarten through the third grade? Because that seems to be, by agreement of everyone, the important period.
The teaching of reading is critical. Class size makes a lot of difference. How well the teacher has been trained in the techniques for teaching reading, because there isn't one technique. From a point of view of a developmental psychologist, I believe that there are lots of different routes by which different children learn. So that for some children, phonics may be the best way. For other children, the whole word method may be the best way. For some children, the visual component is very important. For other children, the auditory component is very important. So the teacher has to have an armamentarium of different techniques that match individual children. And in order to do that effectively, class size becomes very critical, or having a sufficient number of aides in the classroom.
Now you have a graduate school of education, right?
No. The master's programs in education are on the campuses, and CUNY has never had a doctoral program in education.
Why not?
I don't know the answer to that. I think that's a long story, but we are right now trying to rectify that. We have a planning process going forward, and we will eventually be bringing to the board a proposal to establish a PhD in education at the City University of New York, long overdue.
Well, I would recommend it because at one point I was a professor at the Graduate School of Education at Fordham University for several years, and one of the problems that I found my students had, and they became, by the way, not just teachers in the New York City school system, but assistant superintendents and principals and educators in other capacities. They thought that my courses were particularly useful because I talked about the reality of what goes on in the neighborhoods. I talked about the history of the Puerto Rican and Hispanic community, about city planning and urban education. And the students said that they never had any courses that prepare them to deal with the problems that they found when they went to teach in areas like the South Bronx.
Right.
And therefore, if they're going to carry out what you said, develop special techniques to teach young people up to the third grade, they need to know what goes on in those neighborhoods.
Yeah.
So.
The other thing that is important is if a teacher knows good techniques for maintaining control of a classroom. One of the things that is most critical for new teachers is that they don't have a good set of techniques for keeping the children engaged, and once you get into disorderly behavior, then learning stops. And so it's not only the content that the teacher has to know, the teacher also has to know good behavioral techniques in terms of keeping children engaged on task and the class orderly.
Would it work out better if the elementary schools, instead of being K through 6, would be something like K through 3, so that more attention could be focused on those first 3 grades?
That's a possibility, and in some districts that's done. My granddaughter, for instance, in New Jersey, in Montclair, went to an elementary school that was kindergarten, 1st, and 2nd grade. And now, in the 3rd grade, she has to go to a different school. So there are different ways to organize elementary schools, but you know, New York City is very complex and very difficult.
Yeah, but it can change. I mean, it's not easy, as
True.
you know, but changes have to
Right.
come about. And as far as I'm concerned, I would welcome having a graduate school of education at CUNY because, as you know, Randy Weingarten and everyone says that there's a huge need for thousands and thousands
Yes.
of teachers in New York City in the coming years.
And there's a huge need for us to do research on the central questions of how we improve learning of young children.
Okay, well, I hope that we'll be able to meet that need. Thank you very much for coming.
Oh, you're very welcome.
You can reach us by email at our website, www.cunytv.cuny.edu, or write to us at CUNY TV, 365 Fifth Avenue, New York, New York, 10016. We look forward to hearing from you.